Should be good. Let's hear if we can get a kick drum. Yes, seems like that's through. Let me know in the chat if you can hear that and if you can hear me and how the levels are. Seems like it's working, but we just want to double check. A couple minutes late, couple technical difficulties, trying to get set back up again. It's been a minute since I did a live stream, and all my stuff was disconnected. So trying to get everything back connected again. So hey everybody, thanks for joining in. For everybody who's out there, yeah, pop into the chat and let me know where you're chatting from and tuning in from. And yeah, this is going to be a little bit of a chat about the trip that I just got back from, playing some shows in Berlin, some shows in Amsterdam, teaching a course during ADE, teaching a masterclass, which was a ton of fun as well. It was kind of a mini version of the online course that I do, that you can sign up for at circlelive.com/courses. My shameless plug. The only sponsor I have is my courses. So if you're interested, sign in for one of those. Let's see. Hey, Erica. What's going on? Welcome, you guys. Welcome to everybody that's joining in. And yeah, we'll go a little bit over some of the things I'm changing with my rig. You can see it's kind of a mess. It's way different than it normally is. I normally have everything pretty tidy and neat. And right now I've got everything kind of doing some different stuff because I'm trying some different things with the rig. After I got back from Amsterdam, from ADE, tons of inspiration from shows that I went to, other artists that I was hanging out with, things that, you know, ideas that I thought up and got inspired by while I was there. So wanted to get back and try some stuff out. So I moved some things around in the case and trying some new types of patching, and that's why the mess that we've got here. Yeah, we can always chat about that for sure. Let's see here. Hey, from Manchester, UK, what's going on? Oslo, awesome. They got the Norwegians in the house. Yeah, wherever you're signing in from or chatting in from, definitely put that in the chat because I always like to know where we are. I'll change views here so we can chat a bit before we jump into the craziness. So yeah, let me know first and foremost, this is kind of a Q&A, ask me anything about the trip and about shows and traveling with gear and new gear. Obviously there's a bunch of new stuff out there, so we can talk about that stuff as well. And yeah, just kind of a Q&A about whatever, but obviously focused on the trip to ADE and what that was and those gigs and sorry, traveling with the gear to those gigs and trains and airplanes and, you know, Ubers and all that kind of stuff to kind of get the gear to where we needed to go and get things set up. So yeah, we can chat about any of that stuff. So let's see what else we got here. Music sounds good, sweet. Hey Vincent, ça va? Good to see you in here. Awesome, from Dublin, sweet. Welcome, welcome. I would love to come visit in France. Just need a gig there. So we'll put that together and hopefully I'll get there soon. Hopefully on the next trip to Europe. But yeah, so yeah, if you have any questions, pop those in the chat about any of the stuff that we were talking about. And otherwise, we'll just kind of go through things and chat about stuff while we play around. And I can show you what I'm doing different here. But yeah, let's see. I see a new shock mat module in the case. Yes, it's the Bishop's Miscellany. And I've actually had it for a while. It wasn't in the case. It had been in my studio case and wanted to try around, and that's one of the things with this new kind of patching, which I will show you guys here. Kind of the new patching ideas is some different types of modulation and modulating sequences, which is what the Bishop's Miscellany really does. It can create sequences and chop them up and edit them, but it can also be kind of a pass-through for other stuff. So I can run the Oxy into the Bishop's Miscellany, record into that, or like grab a sequence, both CV and gate that are coming from that, and then I can, randomize that or chop it up or add slides or do things like that before I send it out to other things. So it's pretty cool. It's an interesting way to modify a sequence. Obviously, it can create its own kind of random sequences as well, both CV and gate. But what I wanted to try to do with it was to use the Oxy to create sequences that I'm already doing and kind of run those through it. And so yeah, it's been interesting with that. And then the Griffin's Claws, also shock mount, to be able to do some interesting kind of modulation or not, which I like about that is that you can kind of bypass it and just let the regular sequence go through. But if you want to do something cool with it, you can jump in to the different modes and kind of record things and edit what you've recorded. So it's nice to have as an option, but without having to always be the generator of the sequence. So that's what I'm messing around with right now. That's part of this new experimental patch. So yeah, let's see, welcome back. Looks like you had an amazing trip. I did. It was very cool. So just to recap quick on the trip, I was in Berlin for a week, a couple days in Brussels just to visit friends and have some mussels and drink some beer, which was amazing. And then went to Amsterdam for ADE. I had a couple shows in Berlin. I had 3 shows in Amsterdam and a course that I taught as part of the ADE educational program, which was really fun. It was a masterclass on improvised live performance, which was kind of a condensed version of the course that I teach online that you can sign up for if you'd like. So one thing too about the course that I do online, the next session is the November session, and it starts in, let's see, it starts this coming Wednesday, the 5th. So if you sign up now, you get access to the videos, which is like 50 videos as part of the course. And then there's 2 different courses. One is on improvised live performance, and the other one is on hybrid production. So using live performance techniques in your production and using your productions in your live performances. So 2 different courses, both start the 5th. You get access to like 50 videos per course, depending on which one you sign up for. There's an online group that's just for people that have taken the course, so it's nice. It's not a bunch of shit posters about gear. It's people that are actually into, learning and progressing and sharing with others, which is great. And then we do twice a week, like a group Zoom session, so you can jump in and we do Q&A about that session or that section of the course, and then I can go into more depth about, explanation of stuff or demonstrations of things live, so you can ask how would you do this way, and I can kind of show it live. And then you also get a one-on-one for an hour that you can book anytime you want during the course or after the course. So yeah, you get a bunch of stuff. And actually, because we're coming off the ADE course, there's 20% off if you use code ADE at checkout. It'll give you 20% off any of the courses. So definitely jump in and sign up for one of those. I'd love to see you on there. So anyway, let's see what else. Good evening. Just curious, did you see many of the new TR-1000s around? Just curious to see how it is catching on. Yeah, they were everywhere. There was, Roland did a specific kind of event where it was kind of a hands-on thing. You could go and mess around with them. They did a Q&A with some artists on stage demoing it. There's some little snippets of it online, which are pretty cool. They did a thing where my friend Nadia Stravig did a live demo with Kink, and they were both on stage, each of them just using a TR-1000, and it was pretty amazing what they were doing. Then I saw a few of them in some live sets. as I went to the Dave Clark evening at Melgweg and saw FIAC, and they had this really interesting hybrid setup where there was a DJ mixer in the middle, and then they had 2 CDJs on one side and then a full live setup on the other side. And one would be using the CDJs while the other was using the live set to kind of, the live set was kind of the through line for their whole show. And then they were using the CDJs to add in, bits of melodic elements or different tracks or leads or whatever. Unlike a lot of hybrid sets where everything's focused on the track and then the live bit adds kind of sparkles to everything, their live set was really kind of the main part, and then they were adding in bits with the CDJs, which were cool. But as part of their live set, they had a TR-1000 as well. So yeah, to answer the question, the TR-1000 was everywhere. Every time I saw it, sounded amazing. Every indication is that it's just an unbelievable piece of gear. So I'm looking forward to getting one. I'm in the back order lineup right now. Mine was supposed to arrive the 28th, which was the day I got back from Europe. And instead now it looks like it's not gonna come until the first week of December, unfortunately. So hopefully something changes with that and it comes sooner. I'm looking forward to getting my hands on it. But yeah, all indications are it's been absolutely amazing. There's one little MIDI glitch that people have been talking about with clocking, but it seems like it's only a really specific type of clocking. And there's a setting you can change inside the TR-1000 that fixes it that most people are just not familiar with. So anyway, that's kind of the only real glitch that I've heard from it. So otherwise, it feels like they did a really good job of making a very complete piece of kit before they put it out, which is awesome. I'm very, very, very much looking forward to giving it a try. So we'll see. What else? Yo, what's up, Herbie? Good to see ya. Good to see you in here. Did you come back with any new ideas for my classes? I did, actually. There's, it's interesting. Every time I learn something new or I try to come up with something new, I think about ways to incorporate that into the class. And it's one of the cool things about the courses is that because there's twice weekly live Zoom calls, anything that's new that wasn't around when I did the course, I can always add into those. So that's where things are kind of constantly updated. So the course videos are pretty much, they're kind of the standard fare. And then I can always add new stuff into the calls. And so that's where that tends to go in. So, for example, in the production course, been working through a whole bunch of new workflows as far as multi-track recording from the Modular. I did a stream about that before I left. Now incorporate that into the course. Some of the new stuff, depending on what new gear comes and goes, adds to the live performance side of things as well. So yeah, there's always new stuff. When I was at ADE, one thing that was really interesting to me, and I've talked about this a bit, and it just really came to the forefront at ADE, was the growth of the live performance side of things. There's whether it's incorporating pieces of hardware into a DJ set as kind of a hybrid, whether it's going more to all live. One of the things that I really noticed was the growth from last year's ADE to this year's ADE and how much live sets there were, whether it was fully live or hybrid, and also how much live was being incorporated into the educational curriculum of the conference side of ADE. So like the masterclass that I did was with a few other artists, Klangspor, Julia Bondar, some others, and our masterclass was fully sold out. Our live show that we did the night after the masterclass that was with all the people who taught the course was completely sold out as well. Lots and lots of live events. The store event, they had 2 nights. I think this was the second year that they've done 2 nights. Both nights fully sold out, fully packed. So there was those, and then a lot of other artists that I saw during the educational stuff. Dasha Rush had a How I Play Live thing. Stimming did a thing about live performance as well. The thing with Kink and Julia Bondar. So there's Kink and Nadia Stravig. So there was really a lot that was geared towards live performance, which was new. I mean, there's always been a bit, but it was really interesting to see the growth from last year to this year. And it really kind of points to something that I've talked about a bunch on these streams, which is that I really feel like there's a lot of growth towards live performance in electronic dance music. And I think that a big chunk of that is coming from the growth of AI. And I think that people are saying like, well, if it's AI generated music or whatever, there's a certain amount of value in seeing somebody play live and knowing that they're performing live rather than being unsure, is this an AI generated track or an AI generated DJ set or a pre-recorded something? And so when you see somebody playing live, you can actually see them turn a knob and hear the sound change. And so there is some value in that. I noticed a lot of that in this past year with Carl Cox, for example. He is now playing fully live. He's touring a fully live show. His stage at Ultra Music Festival this year was 100% live acts. And so there really is a lean towards that in the dance music world, which of course I love. I love seeing that more people are interested in it. It's one of the reasons why I love teaching my courses, because the more people we get into this, the more interest there is, the more people are out there playing shows. That's going to interest the crowd more, and it's just going to keep people seeing and learning and loving this kind of creative outlet of live performance. So yeah, that was a huge change in ADE this year from past years. So let's see what else. James, welcome. Jealous of the store show, but that was insane. Yeah, it was amazing. I was lucky enough to go to both nights. I know that they're going to be posting, they already posted one of the videos from the Pink Noise room, which is kind of the second room at store. I think they're going to be posting the two main shows by the end of this month, I heard. It was amazing to see both nights, because both nights were very, very different. And you'll see that when you watch the videos, if you watch the full videos of the two nights. The Saturday night was a lot more aggressive, more industrial. Orphex was playing, which is, their sound is very kind of industrial and hard. And they were playing with Surgeon and Regis. And so they were going for this kind of very raw, harsh industrial sound, which was amazing, sounded so good, and it was such a good night. And then I came back on Sunday night, which was kind of the lineup that I was super into. And I've been to, I think this was the 4th and 5th store that I've seen live, and I've watched all of the videos. Sunday for me was by far the best store I've seen of any of them, the ones I've been there in person or seen online. It was mind-blowing. It was absolutely amazing. The vibe, the energy, the build over the course of the night, the way they just kind of pushed and pulled as far as the energy and the tempo. And there was these moments where it was like kind of tribal drums and amazing sounding, modular leads. And the way they have it set up with that big kind of monolith in the middle, it just felt like the scene from 2001 where it's like all the monkeys dancing around the monolith. It kind of felt like that, like just this kind of primal energy. It was amazing, like absolutely amazing. Sunday night was mind-blowing. The 8 hours passed like that, like you didn't even recognize the time passing. So yeah, it was unbelievable. And that lineup for me was a really super solid lineup. It was Dasha Rush, Luke Slater, Stanislav Tolkachev, and who else? And Fadi Mohem, and of course Speedy J. So it was amazing, like absolutely amazing lineup. Some of my favorite artists, plus getting them all together in this format was unbelievable. So yeah, that was crazy. Store was nuts. Oh, what's up? Jason, hey, what's happening? Stoked to hear about the world tour. Yeah, it'd be nice to have the world tour. This was just a quickie European mini tour, but it was super fun. Any chance the courses got recorded? They actually did. The Modular Collective, I think it's called, was the group that put on the event. They recorded everything, and I think that they're going to be putting them on their website, which you can find them on social media, Modular Collective, and take it to their website. I have some links on my Instagram as well, so you can go there. And not sure when they'll be up, but I do know that they did record the courses. Have you seen the Fader Punk unit? If so, what's your take on it? I have seen it, but I haven't used it, so I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't really have a take. Sometimes I'll see something and it'll jump right out at me, and that one didn't necessarily jump out at me, and so it would be something that I would have to use to kind of develop a take and decide what I want to think about it. So, not sure on that one. TR1000 is an easy one. Super excited about that. Let's see what else. One thing gear-wise, I did get to hang out quite a lot when I was in Berlin with Raphael, who's the guy who invented the Bohm, my new crazy kick drum module from Ohmforce, and got to talk to him a lot about what they're working on to develop the Bohm and kind of the system and new drum algorithms. So there'll be some new drum models coming. They really want to develop the groove side of it, which is the kind of rumble or whatever side of it, to do other things, which is great because it's always felt like that was cool, but it could be better. And so they've got a whole bunch of other ideas. I shared some ideas that I would like to see, and he seemed very open to implementing them. So that would be great. So I think that it's as a system, I think that's going to really develop over time. One thing he did mention is they just put out a new firmware like 2 weeks ago, or like the week that I was there, and I didn't know. They kind of snuck out a new firmware, and I haven't updated it yet, but I'm looking forward to it because one of the things that everybody had been asking me about, and it didn't do, which apparently now it does do. You can split the outputs. So it was previously that once everything went in to the Bohm to try to get the side chain, everything came out as a stereo pair. And so there was no way to kind of have the kick by itself or the rumble or any of that stuff. And what it is mono right now, and he's coming out with a different way to do this in a future update, I think. But for right now, you can actually, with this firmware, you can select to split those outputs and have one of them be the kick and rumble, and the other one be the rest of your mix. Or you can split them so that your mix comes out of, I have to try and think about how this works. Your mix comes out of both, like your mix of everything except the kick, and then one is the rumble and the other is the kick, which if you don't have a mix going through it, then you have a way to process the kick and the rumble separately. So it's cool that they came up with some different ways to route the audio, because that was one of the drawbacks of it, was once you got your audio into it, there was no way to separately process everything. And so now there will be. So that's a cool update coming from the Bohm, plus new updates to the Groove module and to the algorithms, the kick drum algorithms. So there'll be different new kick drums that we can go in there. So yeah, so that will be coming as far as the Bohm goes. Yeah, anything else? Any other questions? Pop things into here. Otherwise, let's switch up the view here. It's going to take me a second to switch. There we go. And we can jump into kind of what I'm doing with this kind of spaghetti of patch that's here. So you can hear a little bit of what this is. So a lot of what's here in the case is not patched right now, because I was just trying to kind of mess through some ideas with a couple of voices. So the drums and percussion, or at least the kicks and hats, are patched. And then the warp and the pizza are patched, and then the rest of this tangle is all modulation of mostly pizza, but a little bit with the warp. So anyway, that's what I was looking at here, was using the bishops and the Griffin's claws to be able to modulate, and I've got them going through some different multiples so that I can send the same modulation to different destinations. So it gives us some kind of interesting movement with stuff. So let's see here. Yeah. Let's see how crazy this gets. So that's all boom, kick, and then secondary kick with the battering ram to get some different sounds in there. And then going into the warp and the pizza patch. So that's the patch going through the warp. That exact same sequence in patch is also going into the pizza, but being modulated a different way. So that's sounding like, so if I take that one out, then when you kind of combine those two together, and then add in some of the sound effects here. I've got a ton of sidechain on this, so I'll take it off so you can hear the whole sound. So trying to get some simpler sounds that are modulated in different ways so that it gives a lot of really interesting kind of atmospheric sounds without having it be always like the kind of basic literal sequences. One of the things that I was really inspired by, particularly with the store event, was hearing them take a really simple idea and then develop it, some through modulation, but mostly through effects, and being able to use the effects to really push things in different ways. And that was something that kind of really stuck with me. So like if we pull out and we just take just the pizza. So there's some of what you're hearing. This is only the pizza. Some of what you're hearing is modulation, so I'll take out all of the effects. Take the kick totally. So that's where the basic sound is starting. Then I've got the first, which is an insert effect. And then I can use that through Ascend, which is a reverb right now. And then if I go to a more 4 on the floor kick, and then I can turn up the side chain that's coming from the bomb. So again, you can get to something like this using the effects. So now if I pull those effects back out, pull the reverb and the delay back out, this was the simple idea that we were starting with. And then with something like the pizza, you have octave switching, which is cool because you can bring this down and have this be something totally different, or you can bring it. Bishop's Miscellany, you can go in and I can modulate this. So if I want, I can switch to it's kind of a sample mode, which is not really, it's like it's a slice mode, but it's slicing the MIDI signal. like that, you can record it. And then that becomes our new sequence.
So again, I haven't really changed anything in kind of the main sequence. I just went through and sliced the sequence in the bishops and then recorded what I liked, and now it's a totally new section. And these are both kind of high frequency, so if I wanted something to be bass, I can switch the pizza. Put some sidechain pump into this. Yeah, so trying to be able to explore simple melodic ideas that you can morph through a whole bunch of different things using sequence manipulation and some modulation while keeping things like kick and hats being what they are. Generate a new random. Maybe. I think I need to switch this to a buffered mult because it's not always coming through on the mult, which is too bad. But anyway,
That's just to give you guys an idea of some of the stuff that I was doing to mess around with this new kind of interesting, odd patch here and why it looks the way it looks. There we go. Get those effects out of there. So yeah, so any questions about this or any of the other stuff? I'm gonna go back to the chat because it looked like a bunch of stuff popped up in here. All right, where we at? Using Deluge as my main sequencer. Purchased my first ever Eurorec module the other day. BIA. It's great. BIA has been in my rack since I started. It was one of the first modules I bought, and it has never left. So it's pretty awesome. Baseline is great. I will say that I have a love-hate relationship with the baseline because there's times where it's just like, it sounds so good. And then other times where the signal output is too hot or it gets to be a lot of the same sounds. And so I kind of go back and forth, but it serves a great purpose. So it always ends up staying in my case as well. So yeah, it's not hugely flexible, but it sounds great. So it's a really good one. Let's see here. FX Aid, putting in the work. Yeah, I got a couple of FX Aids in here. One's on the BIA, but I'm not using that voice right now. But yeah, those are great modules. I love them. They're kind of like, for me, they're like the all-purpose effect. Like when you need an effect, it's only 6 HP. It's great. You just kind of pop it in there and you've got everything you need in one. So let's see here. Thanks for the set in Volta. Sweet, thanks for coming to the set in Volta. We were the couple in the black clothes dancing behind the two guys who obviously liked harder stuff. Yeah, by saying you were the couple in black clothes, it was kind of difficult to differentiate, but glad you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for coming. Nice and hypnotic, thanks. That's kind of what I really like about this style is I like that the melodic and tonal stuff can evolve. So I'm not, but coming from a DJ background and towards a live performance background, one of the things I wanted to get away from was, what's the best way to put this? I didn't want it to sound like a DJ set. But I do want it to sound like a DJ set in one sense, in that it's smooth, there's continuity between a DJ set and my set and then another DJ set. The sound quality is there like a DJ set. But what I didn't want to do was track A followed by track B, followed by track C, followed by track, because if I want to play that way, I'm just going to DJ. It's way less hassle to have to carry a USB instead of bags and bags and bags and bags of gear in order to be able to do this. So for me, and again, this is a personal preference thing, but for me, I wanted to, and I still am constantly like searching for ways to have my sets there's a continuity from beginning to end without having it sound monotonous and repetitive where it's always the same thing. Wanting to have it evolve over time rather than prepared track A to prepared track B to prepared track C. So again, everybody, one of the pieces of advice that I always give to my students is when you're gonna set out to do live performance, decide at least on a direction of how you would like your live performance to be. Like what style, what type of live performance do you wanna do? If you want it to be if you want to write tracks and prepare them in the studio and then perform them live, that's going to inform your gear decisions, your setup, your, what modules or hardware gears or sequencers or mixers or whatever you get, that will be determined by that. If you want it to be, improvised, that's going to drive those decisions as well. If you want it to be, if you want it to have this kind of atmospheric sound that I'm talking about, where it's like more like a soundtrack for your portion of the night, then that's going to drive those decisions as well, and the way you set things up and the way you manipulate sounds and do things. So all of those decisions come from this decision about how you would like to perform. And for me, ultimately, it comes down to what's the most fun. Like, what's the way that you perform where you're going to have the most fun, you're going to enjoy yourself? Because if you're enjoying yourself, the crowd's going to enjoy themselves. Where if you're struggling and stressing and trying to figure out, like, okay, I wrote all these tracks and now I need to figure out how to transition from 1 to 2 and then from 2 to 3, and you're stressed and you're awkwardly trying to make it like fit a square peg into a round hole, the crowd feels that. And so being able to be at ease with what you're doing, have it be comfortable, and therefore it can be fun, it can allow you to have a good time, the crowd's going to feel that and they're going to have a good time as well. So, yeah, the exploring this idea that I'm doing right now with different ways to manipulate the sequences rather than just modulating, you know, kind of more traditional things that you would modulate, like, you know, filter cutoffs and whatever, was something that I really wanted to dig into in this time between gigs, to kind of figure out what I want the next iteration of my gear to end up being. So that's always where, you know, whenever I come back from shows or a tour or seeing other artists, I'm always so inspired with new ideas that it makes me want to explore. So I just spend the next week or whatever, 2 weeks, just messing around and changing my rig and unpatching and repatching and coming up with new things, exploring the ideas that were generated by whatever I saw. And then I'll kind of settle into, okay, these ones worked, these ones I liked, these ones didn't sound like I want them to. And that'll, you know, help me decide on the next iteration of my live setup for the next performances that I'll do. And, you know, sometimes that's driven by inspirations, like a trip like I just did. Sometimes it's driven by a new piece of gear, you know, like, you know, you get a new kick drum module and it makes you want to do your kicks a little differently and sort things out a little differently. Maybe you get a new, you know, hardware box, whether it's a groove box or a drum machine or whatever, and it makes you look at things differently, and the workflow of that piece of gear will inspire you in a different way than other pieces of gear did. And so then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have this new idea that I would never have thought of if I was using the other thing. So I always try to find the best ones or the most interesting ones or the most fun ones that I like to use, and then, you know, move on from there. So yeah, that's the motivation here. Let's see, where are we at? A significant, I want analog bass capable of somewhat 303 style patches when called upon. Yeah, I mean, that's really what the bass line is great for. It sounds really good as a 303. I will tell you one thing. Normally, in a traditional 303, I always like the square wave version of it. And in this, the square wave comes out a bit weak. So I prefer the sawtooth. It just gives it that kind of gritty edge, and it makes the filter resonance really squelch like you want it to with the 303. But yeah, the bass line's great for doing 303 style stuff. Like I had in my gigs that I played in Europe, I had moments in each set where I wanted to bring in a bit of acidy stuff, and that was always the bass line that would do that. It's also good if you move it to the triangle wave. It can be a really great sub. So if you want to put some interesting sub in your mix and kind of beef up your low end and do like a punchy kick but with a cool sub bass, it can be really great for that as well. So, and it has a sub oscillator as well, so you can duplicate it and it gives it a ton of power. And then there's detune, so you can detune the main oscillator from the sub oscillator, and it sounds big and fat and dirty. So anyway, can you maybe explain a bit how you transition between pattern sections and melodies, etc.? Yeah, that's it's funny because that's one thing that when I taught the masterclass at ADE, that was one of the things I brought up. The two questions I get asked more than any other is, how do you transition, and how do you process your end of chain? Those are the two things that everybody wants to know. And the transition question, my answer is the least satisfying answer. Is that I don't really transition because nothing is prepared in my set beforehand. So I don't have any patterns in my sequencer. I don't have any presets in my synths or anything. So everything is 100% written live on the spot in the moment. And because of that, I'm not trying to get from track A to track B. Where transitions come in is when you have prepared a track A and you have prepared a track B, and you need to find a way to, you know, as unawkwardly as possible, get from one to the other. And that's where transitions become difficult. One of the things that I really love about the fully live improvised performance is that I don't ever have to transition because I don't have a point A and a point B. Now that said, the deeper answer is that I transition individual sounds constantly throughout my set. And for me, that ends up sounding a lot smoother because when you're transitioning from track A to track B, you have to find a way to get all of the track A sounds to all of the track B sounds. And that's where it can get really awkward and it can sound like a jolt from one thing to the next. And if finding a intermediate way to make that kind of sound pseudo-natural without like a DJ mixer where you can mix across frequency bands and things like that, it becomes really, really a challenge. And you know, when you DJ, you have a complete track and you're going to another complete track, but you have a DJ mixer where you have either a 3-band or a 4-band EQ, so you can take out lows and move them across. Then you can take out mids and move them across, take out highs and move them across, and you can do that in different orders, however you want to, as you're using the faders to change the volume levels. With a live setup, unless you're using a DJ mixer and you have a complete track on one channel and another complete track on the other channel, you don't really have a way to do that. But what we do have, we have an advantage in the live world that you don't have in the DJ world, in that we can actually transition individual instruments rather than just frequency bands. So if you think about like a 3-band EQ, you can technically only transition 3 kind of chunks from one to the other. Where with this, I can transition all of the bits. So I can make a kick drum, for example, if I'm playing along and I've got this kick drum and I want it to be more aggressive, I could add transient. Or I can transition it back to something more subtle, right? So I have the ability with this to transition individual elements. Now you can do the same, if we were gonna do the same like with hats, for example. So if I have a hat, I can change the tuning, I can change the decay, right? Where if I'm trying to go from track A to track B, particularly if you're using samples, track A may have one hi-hat, track B may have another hi-hat. Well, now how do you try to find a way to smoothly get from hi-hat A to hi-hat B? It's much easier if you're doing it in kind of a synth-based workflow where you could actually just morph from one to the other. And so, again, going back to the idea that if you decide the way you want to perform, it will help determine the gear you use. It's one of the reasons why I don't hardly use any samples in my setup other than some kind of long loops of like vocals or atmospheres, because those are much more difficult to transition to get from one to the next. Where with this, I'm going to use one kick drum and one hi-hat for my entire performance, but because they're synth-based, I kind of have infinite kick drums and infinite hi-hats. So I can move those things along. And the same thing goes with every single synth, right? If I go, here, let me take out some of my modulation that I had so you can just hear the regular voice by itself. And sorry, I'm just gonna try to make these sound a little bit more normal than the one we were just doing. Too many things here. So where do we have that on? Let's try with 4. Here, I'll switch this so you can watch me do my boring patching here. So this is CD 2 volt per octave, and then let's do gate. Will this reach? Yeah, just barely. Let's do gate to there. So now, let's see. Oh, that's why. Going into the wrong channel of the mixer because I have everything mixed around, so like none of my labels are correct right now because I'm used to doing like different ways. So anyway, so if you've got something like a sound like this, and let's say this is let's say that's my bass sound, I can change this. So I can individually make a new bass. Take out the effects here. So again, going back to the idea of transitioning, if this is my bass, and then I want to transition to a new bass, bunch of different basses out of one bass module. And so because of that, I don't have to worry so much about transitioning everything all at once to one thing. So I can subtly move my bass, my kick, change my lead, modify a sequence, switch to a different synth to bring in a different sound. So it gives me a lot of different options to be able to transition, air quote, transition from one to the next, rather than having to try to find a way to awkwardly get it all to all, if that makes any sense. So that's the long and probably unsatisfying answer about transitions. There is no easy way to transition from one pre-prepared track to another pre-prepared track. You always have to come up with some sort of workaround in order to get from here to there. Now that could be if you're using patterns, for example, in your hardware box or your Electron machine or whatever, you can do kind of intermediary patterns to go from one to an intermediary to another, or you can do individual instruments that are specifically for drums and melodics, and you can move your melodics across while your drums stay. Then when your melodics are there, you can transition your drums, and it's ways to kind of, work around. But everything in the end becomes a workaround rather than how you would prefer for it to be. There's not a simple way to do it, I guess, would be the main answer. Okay, sorry for the unsatisfying answer. So let's see here, where are we at? Can the Percons module do the 303 thing? It can, although not great, because there's not any filter resonance. So you can't really get any kind of that kind of squelchy resonance. You'd have to put it through another filter, where the Ericsson's baseline has a filter resonance. So I guess I could probably, let's change this and go into let's do a whole nother patch to get this sound in here. And I'll go out to, let's see, 6. So I can use that same sequence that I was just using. So this is now the bass line. And with this, and that's on the square. Here, I'll take off the detune and the sub. So you can hear it gets that kind of little bit bubbly sound, but then when you turn up the resonance, the thing I love about this one too, so again, another cool thing with this is kind of the regular oscillator, and then you can add in a sub. And you can dial that in however much you want, like full to none. And then take that off. You also have detune. So it can get pretty nasty. And then switch to the square wave. You get that pulse width bit. And this is the triangle wave. So if you take the resonance down, you get some kind of nice subs in there too. So yeah, it makes a lot of cool sounds for sure. That's why it ends up sticking in there for a while. So, all right, awesome. Lots more questions. Perfect. Been using the Monumatic for acid days. Yeah, the Monumatic's awesome. I'm hoping to get one soon, but it's on my wish list. So we'll see. I would love to give it a try. I did have a nice journey through Europe. It was amazing. I always love being there, and I'm looking forward to moving there full time. So hopefully soon. All right, let's see. For hardware courses, is there a specific experience range that it's good for? Actually, not really. I mean, I've had people at all different levels go through the course. There's actually quite a few of them in the chat here, so they can jump in and let you know as well. But it really does apply no matter what level you're at, and also no matter what gear you're using. So I've had people that are fully modular, people that have no modular, people that are using hardware boxes. I had one guy do it with like a Moog, I think it was a Mavis or Mother 32, I can't remember, and an iPad. I've had other people that did with a Push 3 exclusively. So you can do it with anything. It's really, the idea is more about overview about how to do these things in general, not specifically how to use this piece of gear, how to do this very specific thing. It's much more about improvised live performance, setting yourself up for it, how to practice for improvisation, tricks and tips like what I'm showing you here, like how to get from one sound to another, how to write melodies live on the fly, how to set up a rig no matter what you're using in such a way that it allows you to be able to do improvised performance. So yeah, it's not a specific thing. So it can be for anybody. And like I said, I've had people who were very, very early on who have gotten a lot out of the course. And I've had people who are existing touring musicians who are already playing live sets out, paid gigs, that also got a lot out of it. So it just really depends. I think you get out of it however much you want to put into it. And the fact that there's individual Q&A sessions twice a week, and then there's one-on-one involved with it as well, it gives you a lot of kind of individual feedback on your specific needs. And then the video portion of it is kind of the big picture bits. The whole first section of the course is the beginner stuff. So I will suggest, even if you've got a lot of experience, to go through that, because I know from personal experience with Ableton, for example, I learned things years later that I just missed when I was learning Ableton 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And so it's nice to kind of go back and have that beginner foundation, but that's only the first of 8 sections is that. And then it moves on to some other ideas that's more like kind of the big picture view of how to perform live and how to set yourself up to perform live, rather than, this technical thing that's at a specific level. It's just not, it's not a course that's designed that way. Yeah, so that's the answer. Let's see. I know the general answer is going to be it's good for everyone, but as I was skimming the lessons, it looked like it was maybe aimed at early intermediate. I mean, hopefully I answer that, because yes and no. It is somebody, I would say somebody who is familiar with gear and looking to get to the point where they can play confidently, long form, improvised live sessions. That's kind of the ideal sweet spot for somebody. But if you're a beginner, you're going to get into that realm and then have enough information to take yourself through the rest later on. And if you're somebody who's advanced, a lot of times those are people who they may be advanced in live performance from a preparation standpoint, like I prepare a track and I perform that. This is really geared towards improvised live performance. So you may be advanced with pre-prepared stuff, and this will be a way to help you maybe start to incorporate improvisation into your performances, or even transition your performances totally to improvised performances. So yeah, there's a bit for whatever level you are, as well as whatever gear you have. So let's see here. Regarding transitions, super helpful explanation. Speaking on the meta level, do you have some concepts of how to morph one sound to another, fade in, fade out, masking? I mean, there's a lot of different ways. It's actually a whole section in the course. We talk about how to introduce sounds and how to take sounds out, because there's the obvious, fade in, fade out, right? So that's kind of the general basic way. But then there's ways to do things like filtering things from totally out and bringing them in. There's ways to go from using, like a short decay and having that come in. And that's just like in a really super quick explanation. But yeah, we talk about different ways to use effects to bring things in and out, or to transition, in addition to how to add tension and release tension using different things like effects, like synthesis tools, like cutoffs and decays and things like that can add that. How to use, detune or pitch shifting in order to be able to add tension and then release tension. So there's a lot of it that we go over in the course, but yeah, there's a ton of different ways. But I would say one of the big advantages with the improvised thing is that you can morph sounds in front of the crowd. You don't have to necessarily hide it as much, because it adds interest to what you're doing, and they can feel the change. Just the same way when you're listening to a DJ, you can feel when they're mixing, but if they're doing it well, it's very, very smooth. And with this, they can feel that there's a change, and that adds anticipation for what's coming next. So to be able to do things live in front of the crowd can be exciting for the audience, and it's not so much like you have to hide everything. But that said, there are ways to hide things, and we talk about that a lot in the course. So, lots and lots. Let's see. What do you use for VCA on the pizza? Well, one of the things you'll notice if you look closely, you probably can't look super closely, I don't think, in my setup. One of the things you'll notice if you look closely at this, there are no VCAs and there are no envelopes in my case, which people who are in modular, they're like, what? Oh my God, how can you, whatever, sacrilege. Now, this goes back to something else we talk about a lot in the course, is how to set yourself up for an improvised live performance rig. And part of my needs, part of my kind of deal breakers, things that I have to have in a rig, is it has to be able to fit into carry-on luggage, so that, because probably 90% of my gigs, I take a plane. So it has to be able to come in the plane with me, because I don't want it to get lost on the way and then not be able to play my show. So this case actually can fold down. I can't close it all the way just because I have some patches in weird places here, but it can be, yeah, that's me leaning on my sequencer. So this folds up, and then this can fit into a rolling carry-on, and then any other gear that I have goes into my personal bag, right? So it can go on. So because of that, because I start from this place of I need to be able to keep it tight, when I'm selecting modules, one of my prerequisites is that for my travel case, not necessarily for my studio case, but for my travel case, they have to be as close as possible to all-in-one modules. So every voice you see here, the warp, the bassline, the BIA, and the pizza, they all have built-in envelopes and VCAs. So they're able to be a standalone synth voice by themselves. Now, some, like the bassline has its own filter, and the warp has a filter as well, but the BIA and the pizza don't, so they have outside filters. The warp has an internal filter, but I also have it running through another filter just because I wanted to be able to wave fold after the sound. But that's the case with everything. So like even, you know, other modules that I have here, they're all all-in-one modules. And that for me is the necessity for keeping things tight while still allowing for enough variety. Because sometimes I'll play 3-hour, 4-hour long live sets. And to be able to improvise for that long, you need some options. You can't just stick with the same, you know, voice through the whole thing. And so being able to have small voices that are all in one and that at the same time have a lot of variety of sonic possibilities, that's where I go. So the pizza, for example, you can set it up to use the internal VCA and the internal envelope. Let's see, let's go back to this one. Don't need the kick. So you can set it up in a certain way. You have different options when you set it up, and one of the options is so the control knob can be your envelope. So I can bring it short. I can set it up to have a slow attack. Or I can set up to have a fast attack and then extend the decay. So that the envelope and VCA are built in. So again, as I mentioned earlier on, when you decide how you want to play, that's going to determine how to set up your rig, and that will determine what your choices are, what your decisions are that you make for modules if you're going for modular. And you know, it's one of the things that with modular it can be really overwhelming, and that's why I think a lot of people get lost, is they end up being like, oh, this module sounds cool, that sounds cool, that sounds cool, because they hear it on YouTube or whatever. But the sound isn't the only thing. There's a lot of modules that sound cool, but there's also a lot of modules that sound cool that you can't use in a small improvised live performance rig. So one example I love to use is the Chaos Devices Odessa is an amazing oscillator. It sounds so good, but it takes 15 minutes to kind of tweak it and dial it in to find that amazing sound. And you just don't have that amount of time when you're doing a live performance. So that voice couldn't make it into my case because it doesn't lend itself to the immediacy that something like the Pizza does, or the BIA, or the Bassline, or the Warp. So these are in my case because I can get a lot of variety really quickly dialing them in, and because they're, for the most part, all-in-one voices, so that I don't have to take up a lot of space in order to create a single voice, if that makes sense. So anyway, what else? Also, generally, who have you been impressed with from live perspective lately? I mean, obviously, Colin Benders is like a huge hero. One of his lesser known sets was from a festival called the Sowenda Festival, I think, just within the last, I don't know, 6 months. I would definitely check that one out. It was a great, great live set. His set from the Stone Techno Festival was amazing as well. I also, I mean, obviously I love the store events, but that's a little bit different because it's not an individual artist playing an individual live set. But yeah, they were great. I have to say, when I was at ADE, one of the events I played was with Klangspor, and his live set was amazing. Loved it. It was super fun, high energy, great. So if you get a chance, check him out for sure. Let me think, who else have I seen recently? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of artists who play live sometimes. Oh, Jacko is one who I've really loved a lot of her live sets recently. Her stuff is great. Whether live sets and DJ sets are both really, really great. So I would say definitely check her out. There's a few others that have been playing a bit live as well as DJing, and then they've done like the store type events. Oh, Lady Starlight's the other one that I really love. Maidon as well. It's another one, good friend of mine. Yeah, I would definitely check all of them out, but there's some artists that have been starting to play live more, which is one of the things I was mentioning earlier. And in that realm, Schler and Fadi Bohem both are artists that I really enjoy anyway, and their live stuff that they've been doing recently is pretty cool. So yeah, I would check out all of those folks. Oh, David Castellani is another one. If you want some super fun live performance stuff, check him out. So yeah, let's see here. Nice to meet you at Aslan Sphinxcast. Looking forward to your feedback on my cable clips. Oh yeah, I have those. Where do I have those? I had those sitting right here. Where were they? Anyway, yes, thank you for the cable clips. I haven't, obviously, as you can see, I'm not using any of them right now. This is my experimental phase, but yeah, it was great to meet you too. Loved your set as well. And yeah, he gave me some of these cool little things that you can screw in that are little clips so that you can use them to route your cables through, which I'm very excited to tidy this up at some point when I'm not just screwing around with stuff. So, but yeah, it was very nice to meet you as well. Let's see, performance cost was probably for those. Oh, sweet, thanks, James. Thanks for the shout, love that. Krista Bourgeois, yeah, she is another live artist that I really enjoy. Her, it depends on the kind of music that you're into. Hers is a lot harder, a lot more kind of distorted kick, hard techno, but yeah, her sets are great as well. And yeah, there's a lot of good live artists out there right now. So it's really exciting for me. I love to see it growing as much as it's growing because it's something that I'm enthusiastic about and passionate about. So it's great to see other people out there kicking ass, which is very, very cool. All right, what other questions do you guys have? Colin Benders from Stone Temple as well. Yeah, it was. I actually, one of the things that he does in that set, and this is a great thing about being inspired by other artists, is you kind of get these ideas and go, oh, that's amazing. I love that. One of my favorite things that Colin Benders does, and I'll show you how he does it, which is pretty cool, is rather than starting slow and speeding up tempo-wise, he will keep things at the same tempo, but he makes it feel like he's speeding up. And here's a little trick for you about that. So this is one of the things that he does, is he'll start off his set with things high passed, and he'll bring in his kick in a way that you just get this kind of what I like to call like a heartbeat kick, right? And then you can bring in the low end. So it sounds like it's going slow, but this is 136 BPM right now. But then what you can do to slowly build that up, and this is what he did in that the Stone Techno set, was starting off like this, then you can just add in another kick. And it feels like it's getting a little faster, but the tempo's still the same. Then you can add in another kick. And it feels like it's picking up speed again, you know. And then what he does, like if, let's say he's got another voice in, let's see what we're using here. And again, if we go back to that heartbeat, you can kind of keep the energy low without having to slow things down. And again, bring in those. And then it feels like the tempo's picked up again. So it's like, this has all been the same tempo all the way through, you know, and then if you want to go to like a 4 on the floor kick, you can just. So again, the idea being that you, that I kind of borrowed from his set, is that you can start off with fewer kicks rather than having to put all the kicks and start off at a lower tempo and then try to find some sort of natural way to increase the tempo. At this way, like he started off that set, I think at like 140 or 142, but with those kind of heartbeat kicks, it sounds like it's half that tempo. And then it kind of builds as he adds in additional kicks rather than having to turn up the tempo. So it's a really cool way to break down energy and build up energy in a set that I got from that one. So always borrow the cool stuff from the cool sets when you watch them, for sure. All right, what other questions you guys have? If you got other questions about the gear, the setup, the trip, the whatever, definitely put those into the chat and I will be happy to answer whatever questions you guys have, or I can show you things on here if you want to see something. So let me know. Where is this? Yeah, this stuff is trying to clean up the stuff that I'm not using here, because there are a few things that are just kind of hanging out, not doing anything. So yeah, that's one right there. So it's a little bit of a mess, so I can try to make it a little bit less of a mess than what it was before. Yeah, I think everything else is doing something. Cool. Yeah, so this idea that I'm working on with this live setup is to adapt things. And that's another thing that I talk about a lot in the course, is that don't get stuck in one way of doing things. Sometimes it helps to kind of pull things apart, reconfigure them in a different way, whether it's modular or hardware boxes or whatever, control one from another instead of, vice versa. And it can help inspire new ideas, and it can help drive new creativity. I think that all of us, myself included, we get kind of caught in using things the same way or in similar ways, and then we kind of lose inspiration. And there's this myth out there that musical inspiration has to come from inside you. And it can, and it does sometimes, but it doesn't all the time. Sometimes it takes other things to inspire you rather than just being inspired automatically. There's not like this magic, you get this lightning bolt and all of a sudden, oh my God, I just created the most amazing thing ever. A lot of it is experimentation, trying new stuff, getting creative, and pushing your gear in ways that you wouldn't normally use it in order to find these creative, new, interesting sounds. One of the things that when I was talking with one of the people that was taking the masterclass that I was teaching, is I was playing some stuff on the BIA, which I'll do right now. And they were so surprised that the sounds that they were hearing were coming out of the BIA. So stuff like this, for example, this is completely the BIA. So everything you've just heard through this whole section is all coming out of the BIA. So those sounds, like the BIA was originally designed as a drum percussion module, and particularly as a kick drum module. I've never, since I've had it, used it that way, because I love the creativity that you can get out of the way it can be manipulated. And so finding those sounds and learning how to get those sounds out of it comes from experimentation. And then those sounds that come out of it in that experimentation inspires me with new ideas, right? So I might be playing something like what we were just hearing. So that's all BIA going through a delay. And then if we wanted to add some side chain to that. And then add in a kick. Take the side chain off. So anyway, that's all BIA. That's all one module. So for me, a lot of inspiration comes from the gear. So I'll play around and I'll find things that I like and I'll be like, oh, that's interesting. Now I want to take that idea somewhere. And so having gear that's immediate and they can come up with those ideas, or I shouldn't say come up with, they can get to those ideas quickly, is really great for live performance, because then you can you can manipulate your gear in a way that you figured out during a practice session to get to a sort of a sound palette that you like really quickly, and then you can experiment with it as part of the modulation that you're doing by yourself for the track that you're creating in the moment. So yeah, inspiration, like for me, comes a lot from the gear as much as it comes from inside your head. Sometimes I'll get an idea and I need to know the gear well enough to be able to say, okay, this is how I can make that idea happen. But other times I'll experiment with gear in a practice session and that'll give me ideas that I'll then use later on. So anyway, all right, let's see what else. Is there anything that you tend to do when it comes to experimentation? Do you go through a checklist of sorts, kind of twist the knob, try different sequences, seeing what might happen? You know, it's interesting. It's a lot of times when I'll get a new module, one of the things that I'll do is what we were just doing right here. I will just put a basic kick drum. I'll generally filter it way down, so it's not like distracting, but it'll just give me a tempo. And then I'll go through with a piece of gear and I'll just I try to go from one extreme to the other. So I'll take these kind of all the way to their most minimum, and then it'll sound like, this is still with that same sequence, right? And then you can do things like open up the decay. And then just try to mess with certain different things. So this is just the fold.
then maybe I'll move the morph to a different wave shape position and then do the fold again. And then you find weird stuff like this. And you're like, okay, cool. Now I know that that's there. So if I want that kind of noisy sound, I can go back and find it. And I haven't touched the harmonic or the spread at all yet. This is just different waveforms folded. And then let's take those down and then do things like increase the harmonics. And then do some stuff with the wave morphing. And maybe the fold as well. And then with the harmonics, we've added harmonics, but we haven't spread them. So that's what the spread thing does here. And that's where you get kind of like unison detune style. Change that spread even more. And it goes to an octave we need at the top. And that's without any. And then you can have different versions. And then you can have more harmonics. And with this, because it's designed to be a percussion module, the envelope in this, as you get the attack more, the shorter attack, it adds in a transient. So that would be if you're doing drums and percussion, and then as you get even farther, it adds in white noise. So then you've got that. So anyway, the question was about practicing, but this is the idea, is that when I get a new module, this is one of the first things that I do. Even before I read any manuals or do anything, I'll go through and I'll start to experiment and try to find the limits, try to find how like wild and crazy I can go in one direction, how wild and crazy I can go in another direction, and then find those areas that I like. And I'm kind of like making mental notes the whole time, like, oh, this knob does this kind of stuff to the sound, rather than, you know, I'm not a person who looks at a manual and goes, oh, this wave folds in this certain shape to this many, you know, multiples of the harmonic of whatever. I see that stuff and I'm like, okay, cool, what does it sound like? And so for this, I'll go in and I want to experiment around and find out what it sounds like. And then often what I'll do next is then I'll go in and look at the manual and say, okay, now that I have some idea of how the sound is changing, what does the manual tell me? What is it doing? Oh, this is adding additional harmonics. Okay, I get that. And this is spreading those. Okay, that's why it was sounding detuned. And so you'll start to get those bits afterwards. And then you can start to, you know, decide, okay, do I want to modulate that? What would that do? Would that add to the sound, or would it just be like modulation just for the sake of modulation? So
I like to do it with my hands first. Now, everything that we were just doing here, that was all on the lowest pitch. And then there's 3 different modes. There's skin, liquid, and metal. They can be differing amounts of sound. So first let's go through the different pitches. So this is bass, then it goes to alto, and then treble. Each time it jumps 2 octaves. And then you've got the skin version, which you can hear a little bit better in the mid-range. So this is skin, then liquid. That's where you get that attack envelope. And then it'll add in more of a transient with noise. And then you take something like this and you go back to the bass mode. You can see you can get it super, super wild. And then with that attack envelope, you can quickly hear how it's supposed to sound like a kick. That's kind of in its range where it's in its like kick drum range. And then we pull it slowly off of that. So you can see a ton of variety from just one module, but a lot of times people will say, oh, BIA kick drum, and then they stick to that, and they're always kind of tweaking it to sound like a kick drum. That's great, and it does that. But I always try to push things as far as I can in different ways. Like, can I turn the BIA into a hi-hat? Well, yes. So we would go treble to the metal thing, make it really, really short, add some harmonics with some spread, make that attack really short with a little bit of noise, yeah? And then this, hopefully, it's gonna sound something like a hi-hat, right? So you see, like, through experimentation and then learning the module, you know what those settings do, so you can kind of set things up without having to hear it. And you can say, okay, that's gonna be a hi-hat. And then we can do something similar from like the kick drum world. We can say, okay, we want this to be, you know, down in this realm. We don't want any attack. We want a little bit of decay. And then, hopefully, this would sound more like a kick drum. Maybe a little less. But anyway, the idea being finding all of the corners of the sound possibilities from a module will help you learn the module in order to be able to recall those ideas when you get them. So again, this is just one module, but you can do the same thing. I mean, the pizza has as many as much variety of sounds as the BIA. The warp even more. It's like crazy, crazy deep. So it's great to be able to find those things. And it's not just for voices like this. So for example, like when I say voices, like melodic voices, it's something like the battering ram. Obviously, amazing sounding kick drum. But you can also pitch this and, you know, change it, take off the attack, and you can make this into a tom. And I don't have, where are we at here? That's one. So you can then go into pitch. Quick, that's why. There we go. Love it when cables come unhooked. So that's the So this is all the battering ram. So that's all a kick drum module. So again, that's a kick drum module. So if we want to now, let's go backwards. Right, and then back down in pitch, and you're back to a kick drum again. So again, same instrument, totally different sounds. So going back to the question that somebody asked earlier, morphing from one sound into another, this is how you practice that. Like you go in and you experiment and you find things and you come up with different ways that you can move stuff around to make it sound different. And what's interesting is like if I'm playing along and I have like, let's say I have a like a hi-hat pattern. Where did I have that hi-hat sound? Did I disconnect it completely? Maybe. I might have disconnected it. Anyway, if you have a hi-hat sound playing on one thing and you're like, oh, I need another hi-hat, but I don't have another hi-hat. Like, let's say you're playing a 16th note and you want to have an offbeat hi-hat and you don't have another one. Well, it's okay. You've got the BIA. I can make that into a hi-hat and I'll just program in an offbeat sequence and then I've got an offbeat hat. So being able to have a lot of different instruments that have a broad variety of sounds allows you to be able to do a lot of different things. So like, for example, with the battering you heard, that could be a lead, it could be a tom, it could be a bass, it could be all sorts. It could be an arpeggiated, bleepy bloopy sounding modular thing. You could make it do all these different things. So learning how to do those and exploring your modules and experimenting with them is really important. And I think it's a way to not only get inspiration from your gear, but it's also a way to expand your skills of being able to do a lot with each individual piece of gear. So something I would definitely recommend. All right, where did we go here? Lots of questions. Thank you guys for the questions, by the way. I'm excited here. So, hey from Melbourne, awesome. Good to hear from you. Greetings from Barcelona, sweet. One of my favorite cities in the world. Hope to see you around here next time. I would love to be in Barcelona full time. I wonder if you ever use some digital mixer like the 1010 Blue Box. I actually have a Blue Box, but I've been using it to record multi-track from my modular while I play live. And again, this is a personal preference thing. Coming from the DJ background, I need a hands-on mixer. I need something that's tactile where I can play faders and I've got sends and the knobs that I can feel, because for me, the mixer is the instrument that I play the most of all of the things in my case. So having a mixer like the Exelon allows me to really play it like an instrument. Whereas the Blue Box, I love it as a multi-track recorder. As a mixer, I would need an additional MIDI controller, and then it becomes playing a MIDI controller and not playing a mixer. I'm not good with touchscreens when I'm playing live because it's like hot and sweaty, and then you sweat and your fingers get wet and it doesn't work on the touchscreen and they lose their sensitivity, whatever. So for me, it's not a huge thing. Now the Blue Box modular, I think is very cool, and again, needs an external MIDI controller. But if you want to go that route with a digital mixer, the Blue Box is amazing. It's actually a really, really good mixer, and it can record, and it's got a lot of pluses. One thing that I love about the Exelon is that it's all stereo and it's all analog. And so you can use like the gain to really push, and you get analog clipping rather than digital clipping. So it becomes more of a drive circuit, and it's really fun mixer to play because it's hands-on and analog. I'm not big on the analog versus digital sound thing as far as oscillators go, but as far as a mixer goes, I think it's really nice to be able to do things like push the drive and not have to worry about that harsh, nasty sounding digital clipping, but being able to kind of push the gain a little bit to drive that and have it be the nice kind of clipping, the analog clip that we like. So yeah, so the Blue Box is amazing if that's what you're looking for. But for me personally, it doesn't work as a mixer. It works great as a recorder. For me, I need a mixer with faders and knobs and that stuff. And I love the sound of the X a lot. So anyway, I want to turn that simple melody into an elaborate melodic breakdown before the drop hits. That must be going back to what I was doing before. And honestly, there are ways to do stuff like that. Like, you know, where was I before here? Where did I have something playing? That's coming from here. You know, you talk about using something for taking something simple and making it into a breakdown. Tricks to do that: add effects, expand out decay. And then when you drop back into a drop, shorten the decay. Decay is a great way to build up. So yeah, I like doing that stuff too. All right. Oh, that's where that sound's coming from. Let's see here. Treating it more like a practicing instrument. What was that, James? I don't remember. Anyway, let me know what you've been treating as a practice instrument. Do you ever run long MIDI sequences from Ableton through the Modular synths? I have. It's not fun for me. I love Ableton. I've been an Ableton user since I think Ableton 5. So that's always been my kind of production tool of choice. And I love it. The thing I love the least about Ableton is the sequencers. So for me, I actually do the opposite. When I'm producing, I use the Oxy One to sequence Ableton because the Ableton sequencers drive me nuts. There aren't a lot of good ones. I mean, there's a few that are okay. The 186, the Snake, one of the ones that like mimic the electrons. What is that company? That's a third-party plugin. I can't remember. But there are some okay ones. But even with the best ones, you're limited to a single cursor to click on things. Whereas here, I can use multiple fingers on two hands to be able to do things all at once. And I can do things really, really fast and have it be very, very immediate. Whereas, you know, the kind of click and drag in a sequencer in Ableton drives me crazy. After, you know, switching to predominantly hardware, it's one of the things that I've really gotten hooked on, whether it's Electron sequencers or the Oxy, is to be able to have really immediate multiple button presses. So then I go back into Ableton and I go to use one of those sequencers, and it drives me nuts. It just feels like I'm going super slow motion. So that's for as far as immediate sequences. Now, I don't pre-prepare sequences, so then I wouldn't take a sequence from Ableton and run it through the Modular as something that I made. I like to generate the stuff in the moment and manipulate it in the moment. So again, that lends itself more to hardware sequencers than Ableton sequencers. Now, where I think Ableton can be great as part of a hybrid setup is for signal processing, particularly for effects, because you want effects in a modular and it's expensive and it takes up space, and getting 2 or 3 things to make a chain takes up a lot of space in rig. Where with Ableton, you can run a signal into Ableton and you have kind of infinite effects that you can add to an effects chain, and then you can manipulate them in different ways. So I think it's really great for that, but I don't generally do the sequencing part in Ableton. Even when I'm producing in Ableton, I'll sequence from a hardware sequencer, just personal preference. So let's see what else. Trying to sign up for the course and running into an error. Yeah, let me know. Yeah, shoot me a message and let me know what the error says and I will fix it. Weird. Good to know though. Let's see, I used to run 2 Archer's rigs, but now I'm thinking 2 battering rams. 2 of everything, James, get 2 of everything. Yeah, Archer's rig's another one that's really, really, really good for a wide variety of sound. Like, it does great hi-hats, but it also does a lot of really cool other tonal percussive stuff, and it has a sine wave mode so that you can then change that around and have that be like a normal pitched oscillator. So yeah, it's cool. It's again, anything you see in my case, one of the reasons why it's in my case is because it has a wide sound palette, and a wide sound palette that I find pleasing. That's kind of like rule number 1 for something to make it into my case. And so you can be guaranteed that anything you see here has a really broad sound palette that you can dial in really quickly, and it's a sound palette that I enjoy, and that's how it ends up in here. Let's see here. Hey, Paul, what's going on? Good to see you in here. Colin Benders would heartily approve of what? The 2 battering rams? I think he is doing 2 battering rams now. I'd love if you recorded the direct gear signal and shared a wave sometime. What are you looking for? I mean, you mean like a master outlet, like output direct from a live set? Because anything that is posted online that is a live set of mine is exactly that. It was just the main out of an improvised performance, including like the Rinse FM set that I did recently, all those. So that's like master output. But I don't know if you mean like multiple channels. Let me know more what you mean in here. What are your techniques for bringing in a new sound when you play live? I mean, as I've been showing, a lot of it isn't, a lot of it is morphing sounds, but if I do want to bring something in, again, that goes back to why I love having a mixer, because I like to be able to live mix sounds, having them come in. So where do I have those? So being able to have something in that I'm using like this, to be able to take this sound. So to be able to move from one sound to another, I mean, this is a weird example because just 2 random sounds that I had. But one of the things you'll notice is I have send effects that are pre-fader. So the effect keeps going even when the fader's down. So if I have this sound and it's going through the reverb, one of the ways that I can bring that sound out without having it sound too dramatic is just to bring the sound itself out, but you're still getting the reverb from that sound. And then I can take the other sound and I can bring in the reverb before I bring in the sound. Take this reverb out while I bring this sound in. So little tricks like that you learn over time of like how different effects work and how they can kind of subtly mask things or make it sound more smooth. And this goes back to like the idea of experimenting with your voices and your oscillators. Same thing goes for effects. So one of the things that I tell my students in the course is that if you're gonna do a practice session, too often live performers want to practice as if it's a show. And so they get frustrated if they mess up. And so that makes them get cautious because they don't want to mess up. I always recommend that you have certain practice sessions that aren't anything like a show. You just jam, let yourself go nuts, try things that are weird, and they're gonna sound horrible sometimes. Actually, most of the time, they're gonna sound horrible. And when you get those horrible things, on that kind of jagged edge of your sounds is where you find the interesting, cool, creative things. So then you can go, oh, wait a minute, that one was cool. And in the middle of your practice session, rather than just moving on as if it were a live show, when you find that cool thing, play around with it a little bit. Say like, what happens to this voice if I put it through this multi-effects? Oh, cool. So now I know that this does really cool, interesting things, but if I move the filter cutoff of my effect while I'm doing it, it does a different cool thing. And so by experimenting around with combinations of movements like that, it can give you new ideas and kind of a new bag of tricks that you can use the next time you play live. So it's using, like, finding different ways to use effects, use, decays and filters and things like that, rather than just your typical like fade in, fade out, or like filtering something in. Like, yes, you can do those things, but that's kind of like level one. Then when you get to level two, it's like, okay, let's do combinations of those basic things. Then level three is like, okay, let's use other things. Let's use things like pitch, for example, or if I go, let's go back to, this one's easier with this filter. So let's go back to, so this is on the pizza. That same sequence. Now, like, another way to do this is to bring something in with it filtered all the way down, or even don't bring it in, just bring in that pre-fader effect with it filtered all the way down, and then open up the filter. And you'll hear and it's a way to sneak something in the background is by using that pre-fader filter. And then when you want to bring the actual sound in, it's like you're just clarifying this muddy sound. Right? So having things set up like that, again, this goes, like, it's all tied together, but this goes back to that idea of gear selection. Having a mixer where you can have pre-fader effect sends allows you to be able to do these things. If you have a mixer that doesn't have effect sends or doesn't have pre-fader effect sends, you can't do these things. And so if this is something that you end up wanting to do, you're going to want to have that be kind of a prerequisite when you're mixer shopping of those things that you can do. And now, again, this goes back to the blue box versus an analog mixer, or like a more hands-on. It doesn't necessarily have to be analog, it can be digital, but having a more hands-on mixer, I can do things like I can bring in multiple faders at once. I can do multiple effect sends at the same time of different things, where I couldn't do that if I was doing it on a digital mixer, particularly one where you have to go to a different page depending on the channel to be able to do a different effect for that thing. So it's kind of like doing it inside an Electron box, where you could do these effect sends, but you have to go to the track to do one voice and to a different track while you do another voice. Whereas here, I can do effect send and filter open at the exact same time. Which, if I was doing that with a different type of mixer, or maybe inside a groove box, that effect send and that filter cutoff may be on two separate pages, and the effect send is probably not pre-fader. So I couldn't do this in those cases. So how you want to play, again, will drive the decisions about what gear you get and what you play. So it's all kind of tied together. And that's a lot of what the course is about, is exactly that, is like how to tie all these things together and use them practically, okay, if that makes sense. So let's see. I spend full days composing elaborate melodic breakdowns. I'm better at that than the drops. If only there were someone dropping bangers. Well, there you go. Got to drop the bangers. It's funny too, with drops, there's so many different ways that you can do them. And one of the things that I've kind of built into my set is tools for being able to do that. So like the Bohm kick drum has a filter where I can filter just the kick itself. So that's the kick filtered, but then I can bring in and I can have stuff like this going. Bring in the sidechain pump that we all love. And then drop the kick in by dropping out that kick filter. But again, doing things sometimes where, so So to be able to do, like, put together combinations of things is kind of fun for drops. So I enjoy doing that too. Let's see, where are we at here? I think I was referring to the mindset for practicing a setup like this in the previous comment, establishing a workflow and then stacking days. So, again, there's a lot of different ways to practice, and we go over a lot of this in the course, but one of the ideas is that I like to encourage people to play and experiment, particularly when you're learning. One of the things that will slow your progress faster than anything else is trying to get set in one particular way of doing things and kind of repeating that single way of doing things over and over again, whether it's an individual module, whether it's how you transition, whether it's how you do buildups or breakdowns, any of the stuff we've been talking about. And you'll stagnate and you'll be like, oh, I feel like it always sounds the same. Then you'll try something new and you won't be as good at it, so you get frustrated because it didn't sound as good as the old way you did it, and then you'll give up on it and you'll go back to the old way. So you end up stagnating. So I would recommend often that you do different types of practice sessions. So I'll do sessions where I'm just learning a module or just experimenting, or like with the warp, I need to do more with it. There's so much that it does that I don't know how to do yet. So I'm gonna spend some time this week working just with that module and messing around with the sound design possibilities of it. And so I'll find those different areas. So I'll use a whole practice session just for that. Then I'll want to use that in a context. So then I'll do kind of a long jam where I'm playing stuff and bringing stuff in and doing buildups and breakdowns and doing tension and release and all the things that I would normally do in a set, but I want to use the new things that I've learned in those modules. And that's a different type of practice session. That's the one where I was saying, if you'd find something cool, like sit on it for a little while, like play around with that cool thing that you did and find the differences and different ways of doing it, because no one's listening to you. So it doesn't matter if you stick on the same section over and over again, to really kind of dial in some fun, cool stuff that you found through experimentation. So that's a different type of practice. Then there's the sessions where it's like, okay, I'm comfortable in my gear, I have my bag of tricks, I know what I want to do, and I'm going to be playing a gig, and so I really want to get everything kind of to the point where I feel comfortable and confident playing the gig. And that's where it's like, okay, practice the way you're going to perform. Like, turn the lights down, get used to doing things in the dark so that you can see what your gear looks like in the dark. And then do like run throughs all the way, where if you make a mistake, you just try to recover from it, rather than doing that. If you find something cool, like kind of move on anyway. So in that case, you're practicing performance. In the other case, you're practicing manipulation. And in the first case, you're practicing individual pieces or tools or building blocks. So they kind of build on one another, if that makes sense. So that's kind of the way I like to practice. And then as far as production goes, I look at it in a similar way. Like, I'll have sessions where I'll just do sound design, I'll experiment, I'll come up with ideas, I'll create a whole bunch of different interesting loops using the hardware. Then I'll put those in the DAW and I'll maybe flush those out. Sometimes I will then take those, load those into a sampler so that they can be part of a live performance, and then I'll perform that into the DAW. So there's a lot of different ways to do it, but I think separating out those kind of sessions is for me always the best way to go. Okay. Let's see, what I'm looking for. You messing with one single module, changing pitch notes, tweaking parameters, basically exactly this, but no microphone on, so I can turn it into music. Love the timbres. Yeah, you're a sample dude, aren't you? I am not a sample guy, so it's so funny because I don't like sample management. So for me, I don't ever really think of things as, oh, I want to record all this so that I can chop it up and sample it, unless I'm kind of saying, okay, I want to build samples to use in a show. But yeah, I never really thought about it that way, but yeah, sure, I could do that. We could totally do that. I'll come up with a bunch of things and then I'll send them to you and you make tracks out of them. That sounds like a great way to work. Let's see, been loving the pizza for subby bass lately. Yeah, it's a fat FM bass for sure. It's great. And I run the pizza through the WMD Carbon, which adds this really sweet level of saturation. So it kind of warms up the tinny FM sound of the pizza. It's an amazing combination, those two, the pizza and the Carbon. They go really, really well together. The dry raw output from one module, no effects. A seriously good sampling material. Yeah, cool. We'll do that sometime. Let's see. Are you using the Erica bassline throughout a set as a workhorse bass generator, or more as a special purpose sound acid basslines? I don't use it throughout. I guess I would say I more use it for specific things. And generally that's acid basslines. Like, that's the thing that it does that nothing else in my rig really does as well. And so if I want something acidy, which I generally will include at some point during a set, it'll be that one. But I also use it with the triangle in order to do kind of subby things sometimes. So, like, let's see here. Switch back to this one. Where were we at here? So this kind of subby triangle wave stuff, when you add in that sub oscillator, or this is without it, and it sounds a lot more like a sine wave. And then the detune works really well with this one too. The other thing that it does really well too is with the sawtooth, if you use, so if we go back to the sawtooth and turn the resonance down, like with the resonance up, it becomes the 303. But when you turn the resonance down on the sawtooth and then you add in detune, it's like an instant respace. And then you can add the sub to it. So it is, I mean, it's one of those things, it does what it says on the tin. It is a baseline module. Now, going back to the ideas that we were talking about before, you know, if you pitch this module up and you do, so like, yeah, let's just pitch it way up and go to like the sawtooth. And get some cool kind of detuned ravey sounds. So it can do those other things, but it's definitely where it shines is as a bass module. But I love the fact that if I'm doing a bass part with the pizza and I want something that's a lead, I can do that with the bass line. And if I'm doing something with the bass line and as a bass and I want a lead, I can do that with the pizza or the BIA, or any of them can be anything. A lot of people like to have like, this is my bass, this is my lead, this is my percussion, this is my kick drum. And I understand that totally. And it's definitely one way to organize things. And I did start out that way when I was doing live performance. I've moved away from that, and I have things that I definitely prefer for certain sounds. Like I prefer the bass line for bass sounds, but the pizza does great bass sounds, the BIA does great bass sounds, the warp does great bass sounds. So it doesn't limit me. So if, let's say I've got the warp doing a bass line and the BIA doing a lead, and you were talking earlier about transitions, well, I can set up the bass line to do the bass and the pizza to do the lead, and then I can transition over from one lead to the other lead and then one bass to the other bass, and it gives me a lot of smooth, fluid ways to do it. And then I can do it, you know, in any direction, because any of them can do any of the things. And this goes back to that idea of practicing with your gear to get it to do all the stuff. And so that way, when you need a thing, you're not like, oh, damn, I'm using my bass module, but I want to do another bass. So now I have to figure out a way to make that happen. This way, it's like, okay, if I'm using this one, I've got 3 others that can be a bass as well. Or if I'm using this for a lead, I have 3 others that can be a lead as well. And so it just opens up a ton of possibilities with things when you've got stuff that has that kind of flexibility. So I would highly recommend. All right, let's see here. Might be mundane, but the practice chat was solid gold. Awesome, thanks. Glad to help. But yeah, it's, you know, if you go online and you take a look at the course, it's called the Hardware Performance System. And I called it that because it really is a system. It's not just, you know, improvisation isn't just like get out there and wing it. It's like there's a system, there's a systemic way to set yourself up for success, prepare for an improvised live set, have your tools ready for you so that you can do the thing improvised live in the moment. It's not just chuck a bunch of modules in a case and get out there and wing it. The analogy that I like to use as a longtime guitar player is, imagine if you got up there and you tried to improvise a guitar solo on a guitar that wasn't tuned. Like you have to, even though you're improvising in the moment, you have to prepare to be able to improvise correctly, right? You have to know more or less where the notes are because you've tuned your guitar to a certain key. And that way you can then improvise. It gives you the freedom. So for me, setting the gear up, learning each individual thing, knowing what each does and the limits, routing it in a certain way, setting certain things to control other things, that's like tuning the guitar for me. And then I can get out there and I can just jam on it. I can just play on it for hours and hours and hours. I'll play as long as you want me to live. But I couldn't do that if it wasn't set up. And so this is a way to set things up, a way to use them, and a way to practice doing all that stuff so that you're not just getting up there like a deer in headlights in front of a crowd and trying to wing it in the moment. So anyway, that's that part. Let's see, I really like the new kick module. Can you show more of the rumble section? Sure. So what's cool with this, so you've got like your kick, which obviously already sounds great, right? And it has a ton of flexibility. So a lot more transient, less transient. You can make it crazy wild. Right, but this is just one of the algorithms. You know, then you can switch to this one I like a lot. So again, that's all just the kick drum part of it. That's the first bit. Then you have the groove section, which I know you can't see because I have too many cables in the way. Sorry about that. The groove section is basically a clocked multi-tap. So if you switch this to just the taps, I'll turn them all down so you won't hear any of them. So if you wanted to just do just the taps, let's say you wanted to do just the offbeat tap, and it basically duplicates the kick to a clock to do the offbeat bit, but then you can add other taps at differing levels. So I can bring that in really subtly, or I could bring it in. I can make the middle one more subtle. So it changes the emphasis of that. And then I can bring in the first one. That's all of them full blast. I'll bring out the top two and then slowly bring them back in. Then you have a filter. So that's with everything wide open. You can filter this down. And then you also have a color knob which morphs between different types of rumbles. So this is just the taps, so it's the most clean. Then it combines the taps and morphs into reverb. And then again, if you filter this down, and you can also tune it, so. And then it's morphing again. So then this will go into pure reverb with no taps, but it's still rhythmical. It's still using the taps for the rhythm of the reverb. So if I change these up, see it changes the feel of it. And then it morphs from reverb into white noise, which again, this is with filter open, but if you move the filter down, and and then it morphs from white noise into sub, all up in the reverb back up again, or the filter back up again. White noise into sub, and it's funny, you don't hear the sub really, you just hear the high sizzle of it until you pitch it up, because in most gear you wouldn't hear the sub because it's so low, but if I pitch this up, you'll hear it. Then you can take that sizzle off if you want, and again, you can add all the taps. Back over to the taps. So that's like all the different types of grooves that you can do. But like, let's say you're doing this sub groove. You also have level control over it. So it can just be subtle, or it can be really dominant. And you have level control over the kick itself, which is like the full mix. So it gives a ton of different variety, and that's with all different algorithms, which they all sound kind of different, so. I like this FM one, it's kind of my favorite one, but. So anyway, those are all the different things that the boom can do, and the groove part of it, which is the rumble piece of it. Hope that helped. Let's see here. I was looking at the RAM, but I'm seriously considering this. It sounds really good. It does. And what I've been telling people, and I feel very strongly this, the battering ram is my favorite kick, as just a kick by itself. The boom, for me, is a whole kick system. So it's the kick, the rumble, and the sidechain. So being able to do all that, plus it's got two different effects, multiple filters, multiple algorithms, so it's just a whole nother thing. So what I've been doing a lot is, because the battering ram's so good and it cuts through the low end part of the mix really, really well, I've been using the two of them together. So I'll do like, so I'll do something like this with the kick and leave that kind of low end echoey sound, but then I'll use the battering ram as a secondary kick. Because I love how it cuts through, even with that kind of low end. That's without any of the rumble. Set this up more like I normally have it here. And you can keep those as its own kind of like subtle thing, or you can make it like super, have it be really dramatic, or you can take it down and use it more like a tom. So it can give you a really cool groove, and that way you can keep your really dominant 4 on the floor with the rumble and still using the sidechain. So like, where is it? And then I've got the sidechain that's still the 4 on the floor sidechain. So even if I take the predominant kick out, I still have that 4/4 sidechain pump and my subtle background kicks, and then I can bring it back in. So again, lots of options and possibilities. Always, that's kind of the key. So, all right, let's see what else we have here. What do you think is the key element on a techno track? Trick to achieve? It's a great question. So there's a lot of different kinds of techno for a lot of different environments. It depends on what you're trying to do. So I'll just qualify that answer because my day job is consulting, so I always have to kind of qualify my answers. But I would say if there was like a general rule of thumb, I would say do your best to keep things as simple as possible. Focus on kind of what's your most important element for your track, whatever you're making. So for some it's going to be the lead, for some it's going to be percussion, for some it's going to be a bass line, for some it's going to be an atmosphere or vocal or whatever. But you don't ever want that, whatever that thing is, to get lost in the clutter of everything else. And one thing you'll see, you'll notice when you listen to your favorite techno tracks, there will be kind of a hook element that you latch on to. And sometimes it's something as simple as just a crazy, amazing, powerful kick. But whatever that key element is, too often we try to, I don't know if we're trying to impress people or whatever, but we try to just put in more and more and more and more and more and more. And then the key thing that you want, whatever that element is, gets lost in the shuffle. And so I would say try to keep things as simple and focused as you possibly can. Like when you listen to some of the great all-time amazing techno tracks, you'll notice that even though they're, they may not be minimal techno in the genre perspective, they will be minimal. It will mean that they're using every sound they need to achieve the emotional response they want without anything more. There's nothing extra. And something I tell my students all the time is before you add something into a track, ask yourself, am I adding this because it needs it? Or because it's going to add to the track? Or am I adding this because the things that are already in there aren't good enough and I'm trying to make up for some shortcoming? And if that's the case, go back and fix the other parts rather than just trying to pile on more and more and more stuff, because then it's going to become a cluster and it loses its focus and it loses its danceability. And as a segue, the word danceability, that's the other key element to a techno track. Remember that, and again, this goes to the point, if you're making techno for people to dance to, the point is to make people dance. It's not to impress them with your compressor settings or how many layers of kick drum you have or how many multiple interweaving melodies you have or how many different types of percussion you have. And as an example, a lot of people who are fans of electronic music in general are fans of oh my God, this totally just went out of my head. Aphex Twin. Are fans of Aphex Twin. There's a reason why you almost never hear, if ever, an Aphex Twin song in a dance club, in a nightclub, in a DJ set being played by a DJ, because the context of that music is not to make people dance. It's listening, it's complex, it's stereo panning and hundreds of different types of random percussion in these really interweaving ways. Well, when things get really complex like that, it's harder to dance to. You need something that you can latch on to, that groove that moves your body, rather than that complex, interesting, intricate thing. And so keeping things simple helps keep things danceable. And so if the purpose is to get people to dance, stop trying to impress people by how much you can put in or how much you know, right? It's about those one or two key elements that no one in the room can resist, right? Everybody that listens to that has to move because it just pulls them onto the dance floor and it makes them move their body. That's the important part, not how complex or whatever. And, you know, techno for me is mostly groove. It's mostly kind of drums and percussion and groove and interesting danceable things. And then there'll be one or two key elements that you give people something interesting to listen to while they dance. But that's because I'm making music for people to dance to. Where if you're making music, you know, for audiophiles to listen to on super hi-fi stereo systems with quadraphonic sound and whatever, amazing, do that. But most of that stuff is not very dancey. It's not very easy to dance to. So yeah, I would say focus on squeezing the absolute most you can out of the fewest elements and keeping the focus on making sure that it's danceable. Those are, for me, the keys to good techno music and good house music and good drum and bass music and good anything that's made for people to dance to. That should be the focus. You know, don't try to overcomplicate and impress people because it doesn't matter. Nobody cares. They just want to have a good time. Let's see. Instant Vibe. Yeah, it's a pretty cool machine, isn't it? Regis tracks are my favorite for that. Yeah, I mean, he's amazing. Another great one for that is Ben Clock. You know, I don't know if you remember that, Paul, but it's one of the things I talk about in the class. Listen to Sub-Zero from Ben Clock. It's just such a great track, and how he takes you on this kind of emotional journey with so few elements, but you feel each thing, like everything has a purpose, and the way it's used and the way it subtly shifts or is doubled up an octave or whatever, it moves you with the very least amount of kind of fanfare possible, right? There's nobody's trying to impress anybody. They're just trying to get you to feel something and dance. Like, that's the point. And it's really hard because I think a lot of times when people are learning how to perform or produce or use hardware or whatever, they get caught into this weird cycle of kind of minutia details, you know, and it's why I get asked all the time about like compressor settings and end of chain signal processing and parallel processing and whatever. And it's like, you know what? If you write a good track, none of that matters. None of that will make a bad track a good track, right? And, you know, not having end of chain processing won't make a good track bad either, right? So it's really, really important to focus on the music itself, the elements, the individual things, the sound design, so that you can get as much out of as few things as possible. That's really, I think, key to good techno, right? Key to good techno in general. But there's lots of different kinds of techno, so some of it's more complex than others. What else? Hey there, what's going on? I gave you the answer. Good. I'm glad. It's like, sometimes I know what I feel like the answer is, but I'm never sure if it's going to come through on the other end, like, oh yes, that makes sense. That answered the question that I had. So every time it does, I'm always kind of half relieved that it got to the point. Cool. Anything else you guys want to ask? Definitely throw it in the chat, because we still have a few more minutes before we want to call this a day. And so yeah, definitely put any other questions that you have. Anything else you want me to show or explain or talk about the gear, the course, courses, any of that. I'll do my shameless plug again. If you're interested in the courses, circolive.com/courses. There's a link in the description of this video that will help you get there as well. And yeah, if you use code ADE, the letters ADE at checkout, you get 20% off any of the courses. And so, yeah, definitely jump in and sign up. The next course is the November course. It starts this coming Wednesday, is the first of the live Zoom call sessions. So you'll be able to jump right in and participate like that. So yeah, hopefully we can get you in there. And we go a lot more kind of methodically through a lot of stuff we've been talking about today, but there's videos you can go back to and rewatch anytime you want, and you can kind of dig in deeper. And then on the calls that we do twice a week for a month, it's your chance to kind of ask specific questions about certain sections, and we'll go much more into detail about anything that you guys want to go into detail about, basically. But that's the idea. What we got here? You see the Griffin's claw. I think that's what you mean by the claw. How do you use the CV recording when live? I mean, that's basically how I'm using the Griffin's claw is CV recording. I'm just gonna pull a bunch of this out because I'm not using a lot of this right now. So let's just get all this mess out of the way so I can show you stuff. Yes, pull it all out. The quickest, easiest way to unpatch is just like this. Okay, those I still want. These, yeah, I'm just gonna pull all these out of here so I can demonstrate what we're talking about here. Yeah, don't need that one either. Cool, so now you can see things a little bit better. So if we are doing, where are we at? Let's see, with the, I'm gonna actually take this back over to the pizza because that has some better things to modulate. Where are we at? So one of the cool things, let me just erase all of these. One of the cool things with the Griffin's claw is like you can modulate things like, I don't know, let's modulate the control knob. So I can just go in and I can modulate things just by using this. But if I come up with something I like, I can just hit record, and now that will keep going. And then I can go in and I can do something else. Let's change the, let's see. Didn't need to unplug that one again. Let's go ahead and change the FM index. So now that one's going. So you can see how quick it is to be able to add in modulation. So what I like about this is because I'm not pre-preparing stuff, I don't know what I want to modulate in what way. So having something like the Griffin's claw is great because if I get an idea, I can just plug it in. And again, I don't have to do those in that order, right? So like, if I have an idea of something, just erase those. So if I have an idea, move that out of the way too. So if I have an idea of something that I want to do, I can go in and I can hit record and I can make the changes on that. And then that's ready now to patch somewhere. So now I can say, okay, now I've got that. I want to go into here. So I've got the ability to just put those things in really, really quickly. So what I love about the Griffin's claws is, again, like I don't pre-prepare modulation, but there's times when I want to do some modulation. And normally I'm the one modulating with my hands, but you've only got two hands. So sometimes it's like, okay, I want this to keep going. So the thing that I'm doing that I want it to do, I can just go, okay, this is the thing. And then I can say, okay, now all I have to do is just patch into that and patch it into here, and now it'll do that thing. And you can kind of see what it's doing. I don't know if you can see the light very well. And that's it without the modulation. And with. So again, it's like, it kind of goes along with that whole same theme of all of the gear selection. Is I like things that are really fast and immediate so that I can do things in an improvised way live without having to do things that are too complicated. So this is great because I can just go in, touch 2 buttons and it erases it. I can hold record and do the thing, and then it'll just do that thing. And then all I have to do is patch it, right? So oftentimes what I'll do is when I'm playing, when I'm performing a live set, I will actually pre-patch cables into these and just have them sitting there. Like they're like already patched in, ready to be sent somewhere, but without anything recorded. So then I've got it, so it's just like saves one more step. So then I can just record the thing and plug it, record the thing and plug it. This also has gate outputs, so I can send recorded gate patterns to things, and it acts as an attenuator as well. So you can have something go in. So let's see, like I can send like volt proctive into this and then out to there. And then, so you can see it's not really doing anything until I start to do it. And at the top, it's doing what it was doing without the attenuation. And again, I can record movements. So it's really quick, again, to be able to add something into the performance that you wouldn't have necessarily had before. So I love it. It's funny because when I got the Griffin's claws, I was not expecting to like it because I'm not a big modulation guy. But it's kind of the perfect modulation module for me because I can just leave it empty, you know, erased. It's not doing anything. And then when I want to do something, it's there. So sometimes I'll go a whole live set and I won't use it at all. Other times I'll get an idea and I'll patch all 4 things really, really quick, all 4 outputs. So it's great that way, that it's a really, really interesting improvisational tool because it's so quick to record. So anyway, that's how I'm using the recording on that. Let's see. Yeah, recording before patching helps because sometimes, like with what we were just listening to, if you, here, yeah, I want to do that one because it doesn't work really well. So if like, let's say you wanted to do like the FM index, when you plug it in, it changes things and none of the modulation's there. Now it's ready to go. But if you just leave it here and then like, and do your thing, then plug it, and then it's cool because it's ready to go. So yeah, I like to do the recording first and then patch. And it's funny because when you're listening and you know what you're going to plug it into, again, it goes back to if you know your modules. I know that, like, for example, if I'm changing, that's my FM index. So I know that's the thing that I want to modulate. So then I can go in and say, okay, that thing that I was doing, I want to do this. And then I can plug it in to modulate that thing and have it do it. And while you're listening, you can kind of know what the modulation is going to be before you plug it in. So it's a very handy way to use the Griffin's claws. So yes, let's see. James, can it act as a multiple? You said it 1 LFO and you have 4 attenuatable versions. I don't remember. I don't think it does. You mean like a Batumi where it can go like from one to the other? I don't think it does that actually. I think they're each one. Although another little trick, one thing you'll notice here is that I have right next to it a multiple, and another multiple right above it, because I love to be able to send the same signal to multiple things. And you could do that the opposite way. So like I have an LFO here, I could send an LFO into the multiple, and then I can have the multiple make that LFO go into a few different channels of this, right? And then I can have those signals go out at, you know, varying degrees, because you change them with this. So let's do. Slow down the LFO a little bit. So that's the LFO like just by itself, but then I can go in. Send this to. So again, you can turn one LFO into something, and then again, because you've got that pattern, that's a recorded attenuation of the input. So now if I change the input and make the LFO faster, and then I can change to make the LFO slower. Right, so yeah, you can get a lot of variety from a really limited source. And so again, another thing that I love about this is you're probably hearing a common theme here. Flexibility, variety, options, immediacy is kind of all the important bits. Yes. I think we hit what you were talking about. But yeah, like for me, anytime you have modulation, it's always nice to have multiples close by, just because you don't know if you want to send that modulation to different sources or if you want to have something come in from it. So yeah, having those options are really cool. So I like to keep multiples close by anything that's going to be modulation. Multiples and attenuation, that's the other thing. So like down here, I've got a quad LFO and a quad attenuator right next to each other, so I can run one into the other and then send it out, and then I have attenuation control over whatever else I'm doing here, as well as speed control. Then that can go into this, then I can record movements, and so yeah, it's just a whole lot of stuff. And you can record those movements, patch them back into this other attenuator, and then the movements will adjust the attenuation here and the signal there. So then it changes up, you know, all of it. So yeah, modulation can be fun for sure. I still prefer to be the modulation. I like to knob twist. And that just, again, personal preference. But yeah, it's definitely preferential for me than to kind of let things do the work for themselves. Okay. What else? Any last questions before we call it a day here? Sign up for the course. I apologize for the error that you're getting, and I will jump online right now and try to fix that. So that way anybody who sees this, who wants to sign up for the course can do that. circlelive.com/courses. The next one's performance and production Both start on the 5th, so next Wednesday. If you sign up now, you'll get access right away to the videos and to the online group. And then we'll start in with the calls twice a week, Wednesdays and Sundays, starting this coming Wednesday. So yeah, let's see here. Like you said, it's an extra hand and you can change it quickly. Yeah, I mean, that's for me why I love the Griffin's clause, because normally modulation, like LFO modulation, frustrates me sometimes because you have to really dial it in if you want it to like match your clock and have it do things rhythmically. With this, I can rhythmically do things, even if it's not clocked. I can rhythmically do things that will line up with the tempo of what I'm playing as long as I make the movements rhythmic. And then it keeps going. You can also clock it, and you can set it to do a certain length of loop length based on the clock, which is nice. But I usually just kind of do it as improvised. Common theme as well. Yes. Bare modules W and 1U, 3U is a good one. Yes, I agree. Although I don't have that, but I agree. Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys very much for tuning in. As always, I appreciate all the questions. Hope it was helpful. Hopefully I helped you, I don't know, get a new idea or thought or inspiration or direction, or you learned something or whatever. That's the idea of these things. I appreciate it. And if you have any other questions that didn't come up during the chat, definitely post those in the comments of the video, and I try to answer whatever I can. So definitely put those in there. If you're interested in going more in depth into this and having some more time, kind of one-on-one and back and forth conversations, for sure sign up for the courses, circlelive.com/courses, and there's improvised live performance and hybrid production courses, both on there. So yeah, get signed up for those, and I hope to see you in the courses. And other than that, thanks again. It's always nice to hang out and chat with you guys. Hope to see you in the courses soon.